Hello, everybody. Okay, so looks like we are live now. And I hope somebody will acknowledge and tell me you're able to hear my voice properly, because last time I had that issue. So, hello, everybody. Good morning, California. And thank you, Europe, for finishing up your day with me. I'm Sudha Jamte, and this is the live Q&A, the round 2. Last time we spoke about autonomous vehicle business. What is autonomous vehicle business? So if you missed that, I put a edited version of it, as I promised, with slides on driverlessworldschool.com under the free AV course. You don't need to sign up for the course if you don't want to. If you want, it's free. It's my Stanford course archive. But if you want just the what is autonomous vehicle business, the discussion we had in the last live Q&A, it's called part 0, and I've made it like a free preview. You can just click and download and watch that. Okay, so I'm hoping somebody's going to tell me that the audio is working, or start asking questions, so you can really be Q&A mode. So today, as I promised, we are going to be talking about autonomous vehicle data. And knowing me, I'm going to talk about the business of AV data. So last week when we said we're talking about autonomous vehicle business, if you recall, I said there are 3 different ways of looking at autonomous vehicle business. One is, hey, thank you, Toby. Toby just said he could hear it. So there are 3 different ways of looking at autonomous vehicle business. One is you look at the technology stack that is needed for the car to become autonomous, for all the support structure around it, like the roads, not IoT on the road, but the perception for what the car to see and everything. All that stack, I said, is one way of looking at it. That's what I'm going to focus today, because we are going to look at car data. And I'm not going to talk about the tech specifically unless you have questions, that I could potentially answer. But what is car data is going to be my very first area that I'm going to focus on. Okay, thank you, Toby. So what I'm going to do, Toby, what I'm doing is I'm actually setting the stage and explaining what we covered in autonomous vehicle business for those people who can, who join in new, who were not here the last round. So one way of looking at the autonomous vehicle business is looking at the tech stack. Another way of looking at it is from an industry lens. So if you work in a specific industry and you say, is my industry disrupted because of autonomous vehicles? Could be healthcare, or it could be, let's take healthcare. I actually was talking to somebody from who works with me at Stanford, and he was telling me in Stanford Medical, in the hospital, we have this little autonomous robots. They are really not robots. They are more like delivery trucks. They are autonomous vehicles, mini autonomous vehicles. And they drive around dropping medicine, picking things, and dropping to the next location between different departments, or from some place where medicine is given and has to be delivered to somebody. It could be an oxygen cylinder urgently needed, officially checked out and dispatched from some place in the building, in a secure place, and then now it needs to reach operation theater very urgently. Instead of a human actually running around, now we have this little bot. So this is same as the delivery bots. So in fact, California DMV has opened up a comment period for the next 30 days, saying they will allow small size trucks, not the big trucker trailers, but the small size trucks, to drive autonomously in California. Already we have like 60 different car companies testing out amongst us, and there are all these delivery bots driving around doing food delivery or logistics delivery. Now it takes it to a different level. But when I say autonomous vehicle data, I'm talking about all-encompassing autonomous vehicle business. And one is the tech stack. The second is a business lens, or the industry lens. And the third is a problem-solving lens. So I want to solve a specific problem. I gave this example of keeping the roads safe for bikes. And how are we going to do that? And increasingly, you can see every possible rideshare company and OEMs, automakers are buying these bike companies and there are autonomous bikes also coming. It is not that mainstream, but we see a lot of bikes available, and that goes back to the whole smart mobility concept. So for those of you joining me, I was just doing a recap. I'm Sudha Jamte. I am the CEO of IoT Disruptions, and I teach IoT and autonomous vehicle business at Stanford Continuing Studies for professional adults who work in industry and want to go um, either change jobs into this space or go do something innovative in their industries. Thank you, Richard. Okay, got awesome. So, Richard Mayers, hello. This is one of my students, and he asks awesome questions. So, he already has started asking me a question. He says, I've seen four-wheel devices approximately 20 by 12 by 16 on the curb in Berkeley. That's exactly what I was talking about. They deliver food. I haven't seen one yet. Just stopped on the curb. Um, Anxious to see one actually at work. So I've actually seen the one in Berkeley. In fact, I chased it down, and like I chase all cars, I have to chase the bot that is running. So I chased that and took a little video. So I will share that with you folks as a follow up. So all follow-ups, what I'm going to do is I'm talking to you and I'm going to take questions. I'm going to make this primarily a Q&A, and later I will share a slide version of it. Slide version means as I'm talking and I'm saying that's the tech stack, I'll give you a picture of the tech stack. I'll edit it and give you a slide version of this, and I'm going to put this on Driverless World School. And to Richard's point, there are these delivery bots in Berkeley. In fact, they are seen in Berkeley University. That's where I saw them. And in fact, one funny thing that happened, and that is not car data scope, so I'm going to just give you the story and move on. One of the bots caught fire. One of these small delivery bots caught fire and was kind of, lying down. And in Berkeley University, people actually came and put candles around it like a vigil. And it is amazing. It was not done as a joke. People actually like got used to seeing it scurrying around like a little animal. So it changes a whole dimension of how we interact with bots and all these devices, and that's how it's going to be, and that's going to change the whole our experience in the human computer interface. But that's a discussion for another day. So coming back, today I'm going to talk to you about autonomous vehicle data. I'm open to being interrupted. No question is a bad question. I will answer all questions. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to find it for you. As Richard said that on LinkedIn. So what is autonomous vehicle data? So what I'm planning to cover today is first tell you what is autonomous vehicle data, and then go deeper into the business models that comes with AV data, because that's kind of my sweet spot. And then we would cover specifically a topic called privacy by design, which is to manage the regulation GDPR that comes from Europe about all data, and specifically how that applies to car data. And the fourth topic I'm going to cover is, when I say what is AV data, I'm going to cover the 3 digital twins in the car. And then there is a fifth topic, which is analytics on the edge and AI inference on the edge. But we'll get to it if somebody has a burning question. Okay, does that sound good, like a format in terms of how I will be talking? And then you can interrupt me and take me to any different dimension, and I love it. It's fine. Okay, so I see more comments from Richard. So Richard is offering to order some food that the device will deliver. That's awesome, Richard. I love it. Okay, so what is autonomous vehicle data? First of all, when you see autonomous vehicles here in California, they are still in test mode. We don't know who's really paying for them. There's a lot of business models that is being tested. We have public transportation testing out, like autonomous vehicle buses or like shuttles. There are some being driven inside universities. I haven't seen in a golf course, but I don't go golfing, so I don't know if they are there. There are those which is still in pilot mode. Walmart, which is our big chain store, grocery mainly, but they basically said if you pick things online. So Walmart, this is not the grocery side of Walmart. This is like the Amazon equivalent store, wholesale store, retail store. So basically, Walmart is our big retail store chain, and they do a lot of innovative things. And one of them was they said if you buy online at Walmart, and then they have the online to offline tracking they want to do. So they said, hey, we've partnered with Waymo, which is the Google self-driving car, and it will bring you to the Walmart store to pick up your stuff. So instead of delivery, they said we pick up the stuff. And the idea I'm thinking is to track you for when you come to the store, are you going to buy other stuff? And since they are tracking you from your online, they know your behavior data. So it goes back to data. So we'll come back to that point. And if I don't, somebody asked me a question, what happened with Walmart data and what's the data behind that business model with Walmart Waymo option. So let's start again. We're talking about autonomous vehicle data, and I'm ready to take any questions. So autonomous vehicle data essentially is what kind of data is in the car. So for everybody working with data, data is just numbers, or in machine learning AI sense, it could be numbers, it could be pictures, it could be some kind of numbers again, but a behavioral pattern, or it could be videos. So when we apply machine learning or deep learning to the data, it is actually looking at these as strings of bits and bytes. So essentially, whether you have a number or whether you have a video, it doesn't matter to the computer when it is processing it as an algorithm, because it takes the video and makes it into images, and it takes the images and say it's a matrix, it's a 2x2 matrix, and this is ones and zeros. That's what finally it comes down to. But for us humans, it could be sound, it could be actual spreadsheet data of behavioral information, it could be some kind of actual intelligent voice, not just sound but voice, or it could be pictures or videos. In that's what I'm thinking. I don't think I'm missing anything. That's for all kinds of data. But when we don't even have the autonomous vehicle, what are we talking about data in the car? So what I'm talking about data in the car is, I'm going back to the digital twins. So data in the car is, as the car becomes autonomous, all kinds of information that is going to stream from the car is collected either and stored on the edge and then taken out later, or is streamed in real time and sent to some cloud. And that's where it becomes interesting, who is going to get access to the data and what they're going to do. We'll talk about in part 2. So to start off, autonomous vehicle data is every possible stream bits and bytes from the car that is going to do something, right? It's stored or it is sent out. And when we say autonomous vehicle data, the autonomous vehicle itself is connected. Typically, where business model is going is it's in some form of shared mobility. It is obviously moving and giving mobility solutions in some form. And it is sustainable, and it's becoming more and more electric, because the car is not going to go stand in a gas station and fill gas. So for autonomous vehicle to actually become live and in scale, it has to be all 4 of these. But what we have today is pretty much all the new cars that is being built is coming as a connected car. They're not telling us. So I had a Leaf, which I got rid of few years back, and it came with a AT&T 2D chip, and they never told us anything about it. I was just curious because I was writing my book around that time, and I said, connected car, is my car connected? And I found it had a AT&T 2D SIM card. And nowadays, every Mercedes, every new model that comes out actually comes with a chip. And so it comes with a SIM chip. So then what happens is it has connectivity, and they're collecting all the data and they're sending it somewhere. And with the Tesla, it's a very obvious one. Even if you don't put it in auto mode, it is actually streaming data for me. And so when we got the Tesla, they actually said that it comes with streaming data, and they did some kind of math and said we're going to give this free for 4 years. And I don't know what they were going to do, or they didn't think that people are going to keep the same Tesla car after 4 years. Okay, so connectivity in the car means that there is a provision for the data in the car to be sent out. And now coming to specific data, and it's still raw when I say it's bits and bytes, ones and zeros, images and videos. But I want to stop and ask people who are listening. I see some people here. Have you thought about data in the car? Do you think of any car data that you use? Yes, Toby. I actually have a Tesla that I share with my husband. I've been in this process of trying to get rid of my car and try Lyft and see whether I can purely go away from car ownership model. So I'm kind of going back and forth. So, yes. So coming back to car data. So do you think of car data when you're driving today, because many of our cars are connected? So the easiest thing, now I'm going back past the bits and bytes, to when you're listening to Shazam, you're listening to any kind of music in the car, all the video streaming that's in the car, everything is some form of data. But with that, there is also the metadata around it, saying in Tesla they actually give a profile, my profile different from my husband's profile when we drive the same car. So what happens is then it has my seat setting, my preference of heating, my streaming preference of what's music that I like to hear. All that is my profile at a very, very high level. But the car is collecting all kinds of data. So now I'm going to go to the digital twin, because that's easier to explain the different kind of data that's being collected. Then I can come back to more kind of use cases of the car data. So one is there are 3 digital twins in the car. So what is a digital twin? A digital twin in the IoT world is basically a digital replica of a physical asset. So that means it could be my microwave. So my microwave can have a digital replica of all the information about it. So from when it was sold, from when it was made, all the way it's traveled around a whole retail channel and reached me. And so there is a time of when it was when it was made, when it was shipped, when it started being used. And then there is all the electronics, what is their setting, how much humidity is it facing, how much heat is it facing, the general usage of it, how long do I run it continuously. All that data could be collected about the microwave. If my microwave producer, which I believe is Panasonic, could send it as a digital twin. And the thing with digital twin is every information about the asset, the physical electronics of the asset, the usage pattern of it, and the behavior of usage of, okay, she actually runs the microwave with some liquid, which is her tea, around 7 a.m. I'm making this up. I don't drink my tea at 7 a.m. But at 7 a.m. every day, and it runs for 30 seconds or 44 seconds. And so it's possible that all that data could be collected. So coming to the car, there are 3 digital twins. And one more thing about digital twins is the digital twin concept means the data is not just collected, but it is being sent to some cloud. And so it's a combination of a set of data that is being collected and is sent to the cloud by somebody. Who owns it, whether there is privacy, whether there is security, is not a discussion right now when we are talking about what is the digital twin. If we want to talk about it, we'll get to it. Okay. So the 3 digital twins in the car is one, when the car is made. I see a question, so obviously I'm going to answer that first. Usha, don't we call the data being stored in AVs such as event data recorders? Yes. So, yes, I'm going to get to that. So, the 3 digital twins in the car is the actual electronics of the car, And as Usha said, the event data recorders is how they recorded every event that happened in the car. And every event is not even before you and I get in and do anything with it, but it could be any usage of the mechanics of the car, and how much stress it was put to what happened. So all that is being recorded. So when a brake fails in a car today, when the brake feels like it's failing and I take it to the mechanic, it he doesn't know how much pressure it has been put, how long I have driven on it. So they will ask manual questions about it. But if you had a digital twin, it would be recording all this information on the inside of the car. So the parts of the car, the electronics of the car, that is stored in the the whole event data recorders, is expanded to collect more information, more time series of information about every part, everything that makes the car, like makes up the asset of the car. And that, when it is being shared, is the digital twin. And especially the I say it is not just the event data recorders, it is more, because a digital twin is actually collecting a time series in real time and is sending, so it's a lot more granular data that is being sent in close to real time. So why do they need this information? Obviously, there's a lot of recalls that happens when parts fail. And so if they could actually get this data, they could look at certain parts, how they expected it to behave, is it behaving the same way? So for my Tesla, if I'm assuming Tesla, and I'm not even assuming, it's real. Tesla is sending information about my car and all the other Tesla cars. In fact, I had a speaker from Tesla who came and spoke in my business of self-driving car course while back. And they said they collect at any point of time. They respect the privacy. They're not snooping around on individual car, but at any point of time, they know where their Teslas are running in the world. And so they have a map of point cloud of all the Teslas, where they are moving around, and the data that's behind them. So if something goes wrong, then they could pinpoint that device and say what was going on, what is the digital asset, what is the digital twin saying about the actual asset, and did something get heated up, did it face a different kind of physics situation than we had planned for. So that is the one digital twin. And the easiest thing is to keep the car safe, in terms of actually managing the product, the design, what they expected, the behavior of how much stress it would put, and what is the usage pattern of the asset being used that they expected. They expected people to brake at certain frequency. So maybe I'm a person who brakes too much, and then and that would show that stress on the brake is more than they had planned for in design, and they could do that better design. So it changes the whole product design differently. That is one. But beyond that, in a very practical sense, they can track for the usage patterns of the assets and say, hey, looks like there's 100 cars out there. They seem to be getting more heat on the brakes, on the brake pads, than when it was designed for. Let's watch this. Let's run some predictive algorithms on this and project whether this is going to affect a lot more cars, and whether this is going to heat up more, and whether it is going to damage and cause any harm. And let's do a recall before any damage happens, before it's prevalent and too many people are impacted. Why don't we do a recall quietly and call these 100 people, because we know who they are, because we are tracking them. So that is a use case that comes from tracking the digital twin from the maintenance perspective. And then if you think of the car service industry, they can track that. And now I'm jumping to the industry and business model. One of the top business model that comes with it is insurance industry. Insurance industry wants to track the health of the asset, because they're ensuring that nothing will go wrong. The second thing is they want to track whether we are causing, if I'm pressing on the brake a lot and my brake fails, they want to know that I'm a bad driver. And so then they would obviously put me on a different risk category, and then treat that accordingly. So insurance is the number one industry, in my perspective, that is impacted by the autonomous vehicle car data. And you could say, hey, all this is still not autonomous, it's just connected car. True. But even connected car has all these. From a digital twin for the asset perspective, the connected car is same as the autonomous car. The thing that happens with autonomous vehicles is now it is not just one human who's pressing and creating the brake situation. It's different kind of risks. So in autonomous vehicle, the insurance industry is working with a layer of tech that will dynamically track all the three digital twins when I finish that up. So it is dynamically tracking every data in the car to figure out who is liable for anything that could go wrong in the car. Is it the driver? Is it the maker of the car? Is it the maker of the autonomous vehicle tech stack? Is it the maker of that LiDAR or camera by which the car is viewing the road? And there's going to be a partnership of players involved. And so insurance wants to make sure that there is no blame on, hey, it's the car, it's the software in the car, it's not me, it's the fleet that made this choice when they brought this car. Like Uber could be blamed for something, or it could be that somebody in the car did something in the car, the actual passenger, I don't know, could smoke or blow up the car. Hope not. But they want to actually check for liability in real time. So that's one big use case. So coming back, we're talking about what is AV data, bits and bytes, and it is data in the car in any form, including voice and audible voice or sound or video or images and behavioral data. And I just covered one digital twin, which is the asset itself. And I gave you the insurance industry as the example of industry impacted. Does anybody have a question? Because I'm going to go through this and we've finished about 25 minutes. So I want to make sure that I keep this interactive and you don't have any burning question that I just say I can't answer in the end. Yeah, good. Okay. And is this going the way you guys and girls expected it to be? Did you want me to cover something else? Okay, silence is acceptance, no? Okay, so and you can interrupt me anytime. Okay, thank you. So the second thing is, the second digital twin is about the user, right? The environment of the user. So as I said, the Tesla, when I have a profile, it is actually saying, what is my seat setting? How do I like it to be inclined? And what is the heat setting that I have? What is the humidity that I would like to have? That kind of thing. So all that which is creating the environment, even my streaming data setup should technically qualify as environment, the environment in the car. And that's where it gets to be personalized and per user. And then it creates interesting dynamics when you say, I say the car is going to become a pod where you can work in it. It's going to be like a living room where you can stream Netflix and you can go on vacation. So then when you have multiple users sharing the same environment, then how do you design for privacy settings? How do you design for the interaction and the actual data, whether it is one person's preference overriding everybody else, or how do you decide what is the right optimal environment for that family or group of people? So that is the second one. Hi, David. Thank you. I see a thumbs up. Okay, so hi, Peter. I love it when I see my students. So I see a question from Usha. Do all the driving habits get recorded in the EDR2? It's not recorded in the EDR. So Usha's question is, she's the one who was saying, in the cars, the electronic data recorders is where the data is being stored, and that's called EDR. And so she has a follow-up question on that saying, is the driving habit getting recorded in the EDR? It is not recorded in the EDR, but it is recorded in whatever the new thing is called. And so the way the driving behavior is recorded is not public, because and there is no one standard of what is the right way to do it. Insurance companies have the most vested interest on the driving behavior, and there could be more and I'll get to the behavior data because I was still talking about the environment. So the environment is the environment setting, as I said. So that the more it leads to personalization, and that leads to a business model where you can make the environment pleasant for your customer based on their needs, and that would make them, obviously, make the car would be more useful for them, and they would obviously like continue to use your service versus somebody else. So this is where the whole business model is wide open on mobility services. So understanding the customer today, if you think about the autonomous vehicles, all of them are driving around getting to improve their technology because they want their car to collect data. This is also data, but this is more data what the car sees, and figure out how it can drive better. So it did not expect when the Uber did not expect a pedestrian to walk around, do a jaywalking crossing with a bike, and it got all confused. And so that's extra data that was sent to the Uber deep learning algorithm, by which it smartened up and say, okay, I don't expect pedestrians to just cross as individuals. I expect them to cross their bike also. And so next time I can spot such a object and I do object recognition. And so that kind of data is also being collected. But coming back to the environment inside the car, it opens up a whole set of mobility services. So I was digressing to say, hey, people who are building autonomous vehicle, the businesses, they quite don't know who is the customer. It's a bigger question of whether we are going to fleet model or we are going to stick with shared mobility, or there's going to be some hybrid models, and who's going to pay for it. That's again a business model question for a general AV business. If there is enough interest in the topic, I will do another session on that. But coming back to the data informing about who is the customer, what is it that they're doing, there's going to be segmentation of customers. Why is somebody taking this car? Is that person a disabled person? Are they visually impaired? Is that why they're taking this autonomous vehicle ride? Like Auto runs these cars autonomously in a senior community in San Jose called The Village. They also have one in the Villages in Florida. And I actually have their smart technologist, Tom Haberger, who will be coming to my class and talking about product management in AV, which is yet another topic. But coming back, the mobility services that can be created is open. We don't have them today. So that's why, talking of AV data, if you feel, oh my God, too much, she's talking about things that I had not thought of, it's okay, because it's all early stages and you can come and shape the space. You can move your job into the space and it's totally fine. So I'm seeing some comments. I'm going to pause. What if we go to an establishment with valet parking? Richard has a question. And a stranger is getting to park your car. What if my sister wants to test drive my car? That is brilliant. If your sister is a good driver, you should let her test drive the car. She's your sister anyway, you'll have to give it to her, I guess. So when we talk about how the car asset itself, right, the electronics of the car, it's not about us, it's as consumers, right? It's about the service industry or the insurance industry and the actual automaker product design that they're using. So that part is clear. That's the first digital twin. The second digital twin is about the environment. So if you give this to your car to your sister, you have to create a profile for her. Otherwise, she's going to mess up all your setting, and the car is going to learn things of what music she does and what she does in the car and stuff. That would be treated as your behavior. The third piece is the actual behavior. The behavior is how often, like typical marketing behavior, time of the day, what do I do, how often do I drive, when do I speed up, when do I slow down, what route do I take, and do I stop for my coffee at I just said I make my tea in my microwave. I'm giving you a coffee example. I'm not a coffee drinker. So, but maybe I stop at Starbucks on my drive into work, and at a certain time of the day regularly, and that's a behavioral pattern, and that is all comes under the third digital twin of the behavior of the car, right, of the user itself. So coming back to Richard's question about giving your car for valet parking is a beautiful question, or giving it to your sister or somebody else to use your car is a totally amazing question, because now the whole idea of the car as we have today is, it's my car and I have a physical key or some kind of electronic key by which I know who has access to it. So Amazon has this whole Amazon Key app, and they say, hey, use this app and open up the trunk, and we'll deliver stuff to the car in your office or in your way in transit, so that it doesn't have to be delivered all the way to your home if you need it urgently, or if it's not safe to leave outside. And so essentially they're getting access to the car, and that is exactly the same concept. So yes, you could have some kind of electronic key by which you can give access to the valet person, and or you can give it to your sister, and make sure that is not changing all your settings, and you have limited control. And you can actually say, okay, how we can, when we give the car for valet, we can actually check the odometer and see how much, whether they took it off for a drive. That kind of thing can be done electronically by limiting the access when you give the car out for valet. So, but that data would be another use case of, hey, this is not the owner of the car, and the person has approved access and given to another person. But that brings a very interesting aspect of this whole data in the car, because when you say data, we are not talking about cumulative data. We are talking about tracking that data for a person's setting or a person's behavior, I'm saying A and raising two fingers. Yeah. A person's behavior. And that means there's got to be a digital identity that maps me different from my husband, or Richard from his sister when they use the car. And that is $1 billion question. It's really $1 billion question, because is my identity today just my app on the phone? Because with the Tesla app, I have an app different from my husband's, and that's it. And there is one identity for the car, and then there is the identity of different profiles. And so today we have the phone being tethered, becoming our identity, and that goes with us to the car and interfaces with the mobility platform in the car. And so mobility platform is that layer of tech that facilitates digital identity, payment, fleet management capabilities, shared mobility, maybe car sharing, the carpooling, all those mobility business models that's coming up to facilitate that layer of tech is mobility platform. And data in the car has a component, has an interface with the digital identity. So that becomes important. And to your question about sharing the car. So the next question Richard has is, do you create new users? Yes. Okay. Does audio collect data? Data on passengers. So, okay. So I promise to repeat my questions after last week. So Richard has more questions about, can new users be created? Today, I think in the Tesla, I can create multiple profiles. And that is going to be a design option that the automaker is going to give us as to how many more profiles can you create? Do you have an easy way to create that profile? How do you manage that? And so it will know which of my kids sits on which side of the car. Yes, it will. That is where it gets to a creepy factor, because it is going to know too much information, whether that's something you want to share. On an average, people are not going to know this, but from a business perspective, yes, they need to know that. Richard has more questions for us. Are RV makers working on car seat specific to the individual car? Car seat in the car was something the AV makers did not originally plan for. They basically said, hey, we are getting the car to run autonomously. Here's a layer of tech. And they tried to get rid of the wheel, and that there was a back and forth on that. And then there was this self-drive law that came in Congress in US, and one of the things they said is you need to have a car seat. I do not believe the car seat in the car done by the OEMs, the automakers today, has that kind of personalized setting that I'm talking about as a digital twin. But there are car seat makers who are making cars. In fact, I had one of my students in my IoT course who made a car seat sensor that will actually track the safety of the car seat. So they do exist in the car seat business, not in the car done by the OEMs today. But yes, so when we get to that place where we have autonomous vehicle and it has data and it is tracking individual users and their setting and their behavior, the car seat will come with its set of data. That brings us to a very, very interesting next topic related to data in the car. Is I'm talking about the three digital twins as if it's owned by one business. And so there is interoperability, and you can share the data from the car of how the car is running, its health, and how the user is using it, and insurance company has access. No, there are going to be many, many different businesses who have access to this data, who are collecting this data. So going back to Richard's car seat example, the car seat might be made by a car seat maker, and they would be collecting this data, and they would have a digital twin for the car seat. Now, that data is not or does not have to be shared with the car maker, or they could actually have a deal and say, hey, let us collaborate in a partnership and share this data so that holistically we'll serve Richard's family. So Richard would like to know when the car is driven by himself or when he gives it to his sister. He wants to know when his kids are in the car and they're sitting in the car seat, and whether their safety is a very first factor and other behavior around it. But to offer that service could be offered by the automaker, or it could be a partnership, or it could be a separate thing that the car seat company says, when you use my car, it works with the Audi. When you use my car seat, I can give you this extra features that makes it safe for your kid and more entertainment for your kid, whatnot, on long distance. But it comes only with Audi cars, or we have this partnerships only on the Waymo or something like that. So that is where it is going to get complex, and that is where all of us are needed to shape this ecosystem, because it is a combination of data management and business model question. So if the business model is going to evolve that this data needs to be shared, who's going to pay for this? Who's going to actually create this service and manage this layer of technology? And like in smart homes, smart cities, in everywhere there is IoT, we don't have interoperability. That's kind of limiting the adoption in a consumer setting, especially. Not so much in the industrial setting. So is the car data that is going to be shared across multiple entities, is it going to be owned by one company? Like there is the Apple car, and is Apple going to own the whole thing like they own every stack in the phone? Is there going to be an API in the car, and all the different other players are going to use that and create apps, and that would be the interface? And so you would have one digital identity. That is a big war that is coming up, I would say, between the tech makers saying there's going to be one digital identity. Is it? And so it's in a Google car or the Apple car or the Samsung car. Is it going to be the same mobility players who are actually giving us fragmented options on the phone? Is that going to go to the car, or is it going to be something else? Is it going to be the automakers are going to have their API platform? Or I have a student who actually has created a project, a student team, for mobility platform in the car, saying, hey, different people have to use the data. It needs to be managed and scrubbed and organized in different forms, so different businesses will get just the data that they want to do their job. So insurance company wants certain data, they're going to get just that data. The parent wants the data for the usage of the car seat additional to the environment of the car, they are going to get that data. And so they are going to manage the data management layer. And the second element of this, have multiple players in the car and interoperability of the data, or GDPR, which is basically says the consumer owns the data. When a business collects the data, you need to get their permission, tell them what you're going to do with the data. If you decide to go back and do something else with the data, which is the beauty of data in the first place. So when I just start driving and Tesla collects information, it's not a lot of information, it's not as interesting. But over time, historically, my data becomes useful. When they actually mix it with another data source, then there could be more value created. And so there's a lot of possibility of what can be done with the same data in the future. And so GDPR says, if you plan to do anything else with the data, go back and get the customer permission. And the most brilliant piece of GDPR, and California has a CA privacy law, which is kind of a replica of that, which is basically saying the right to be forgotten. So I signed up and I gave you all this information, but I don't want you to use my information anymore. I'm dropping and I'm going to a different service. I'm moving to a different car, or I'm going, I just don't want, I become more privacy conscious. Now I know what can be done with that data. And so it becomes a nightmare for a business to manage this flow of data. First, to manage this data with all the privacy setting so that they give the right to be forgotten or go back and get permission from the user. The second thing is, now when they have a bunch of partnership, there's a whole bunch of tier 1 OEMs. So Panasonic Bose offer speakers in the car. I had a student from Aero Electronics, which is a big part supplier for cars. So, and they in fact have a autonomous vehicle for a quadriplegic person. And that person who did that was my student, and she was brilliant. Maybe I should bring her to talk here on YouTube. So the tier 1 suppliers, they are all interacting, and their layers of tech are being integrated in the car. So what happens with the data when it is transferred across multiple people? How do you ensure that when you shared your data with the car seat company, how is it that they are compliant when the user says, I have a right to be forgotten, I don't want you to own my data anymore? And that is a concept called privacy by design. And so architecturally, it is a bigger topic, and I will find some resources and I can share as a follow-up to this one. And for people who joined in late, I said that many of you wanted a pure Q&A, so I'm going to stick to that as a Q&A. And I'm going to post a slide version with all the references that I'm talking here on Driverless World School later today. Okay. Not later today, but in a couple days, hopefully. So privacy by design is the way by which you architect the data flow within your different modules. And when I say you, I'm talking about the automaker, I'm talking about the Panasonic, I'm talking about Aero Electronics, I'm talking about Tesla, I'm talking about the car seat maker. There is one company called Sensoria, which is based out of Seattle, and they make shoes. They make IoT shoes by which when you run, they can actually check whether your gait is right so that you don't get back problems. And what they did is they ended up going to the car and partnering with a car company and said, when you in a race car, when you're driving fast and you press on the pedal, your shoes can actually tell you what is your pulse level and whether your it's like being on a treadmill, right? If your adrenaline is high and you're speeding, and if you should not be going past a certain heart rate for your health, then it needs to alert you. And so that's the piece that they offer. So it's like a totally different company, not related to car space, now partnering with a car company. And so now if they are getting data from the customer, is that Sensoria's data? Is that the car OEM's data? Is this a third party who is bringing this together and offering a service as a mobility service for somebody for race car drivers? So that is where it gets interesting. And this privacy by design is a concept. And Richard had a question about giving your car to the valet parking person. And that also comes into play. It's the same thing, that it's a different situation. It's not the same user. and you might collect data about the valet parking driver, or it could be, or a robot, valet parking robot. And how do you separate that from the other data? And privacy by design basically says, at every point where I'm having a handshake and sharing the data, I'm going to check whether I have permission to share the data, whether the user has already said right to be forgotten and forgotten the data. I'll go through the entire flow of data and make sure it is forgotten. So that is where last week when we spoke about autonomous vehicle business, one of the things I talked about the tech stack was blockchain in the car. And blockchain in the car will help exactly with that. It will create transparency on data that is flowing through all the different partners, all the different use cases in the car. And so then you can create transparency, and then different people can have access to it. So it doesn't have to be one OEM who has a API platform and everybody runs an app store on their platform and on their car. Instead, it could be a blockchain consortium, it could be a partnership, and there's a bunch of those that is happening. In fact, I wrote an article about blockchain in the car in Axios, and if you check that, you can see the different use cases and the different players who are coming together on what they're doing, especially on the data transparency. I want to take one more question. Peter has a question. What will be the role of devices like Amazon Echo, Auto, and others is going to play into data for AV's business? Okay, so Peter's question is, what is the role of a device like Amazon? So when I got started, I said car data could be all kinds of data, including voice in the car. And people started putting Amazon Echo on the car, and then now it's integrated, and you have the Google Home also in some places, but I see a lot more Amazon in the car. And that is again exactly, it's a partnership between Amazon and Amazon Echo, the Alexa team. Alexa is listening.
I'm not sure.
Okay, she just said I'm not sure. So sorry about that. So that's what is going to happen. Like, she's just listening right now when I'm talking to you. She's going to be listening in the car, and that data is going to the Amazon cloud. It is going to go to the Amazon cloud. And I paused for a minute, but I think that data has already gone to the Amazon cloud. And I heard that Amazon actually have real people, not just programmatic logic, but real people watching to understand the emotions of people and how they are using the device and interacting with it. I do believe even the voice, that my voice, different from my husband's voice or my kid's voice, even my dog's voice, is going to become a biometric, and the devices are going to track. So Peter, to your point, yes, there is already a lot of Alexa integration in the car, and that is being collected, and this is exactly the same issue of multiple partnerships, who owns the customer, what digital ID is it being run on. And when I have voice in the car, it's not on my Tesla, because Tesla wants everything to be their digital ID. And is it going to be, if it is going to be Amazon, like the key also, right, when they by which they will deliver to the car, it is an Amazon ID. So it becomes a digital ID war in the car. Or it could be all of these collaborate and use blockchain or some kind of interaction so that it becomes interoperable. The more I see, at least that's the history of tech industry, that they want to create silos because they want to lock users up. And so hopefully we will not go there. So NTT Productions, what do you think about the future of AV in 10 years? Okay, that's a big, broad question. So you should read my book, 2030 Driverless World. And if you want to talk to me offline, I will definitely answer your question, because the future of AV, I do believe that by 2030, we are going to get to a more mainstream autonomous vehicles and a lot more services. And my students are going to go out and make that world. Okay, thank you. Glad you like that, Peter. So I was talking about the different kind of data in the car, the different business models, and a lot of mobility services, an insurance industry, healthcare industry. Healthcare industry is not just in the hospitals, like when you're driving, they want to check the health, like I was giving you the sensoria shoes case. There's a lot of or it could be your ambulance that becomes mobile, but it's like the health of the person while they are in the car, and whether they need service is like an extreme use case that's being touted. But I think this healthcare is coming into the car like everything else. So there's a lot of industries, and they operate on the data, especially if they're going to use biometric data. And then if they find the mood of the person, it takes a whole new dimension where retail industry comes into play. So that's the business model aspect. I told you a little bit about privacy by design. And the fourth thing I promised is I covered the digital twins too. The fourth topic, which I said we will touch upon if we have time, I'm just going to tell you unless somebody has some burning question in a different dimension. I actually see some conversation from David Kerrigan. Thank you, David. David is the author of Life as a Passenger, and he's a speaker in my class. People love him. There's a very interesting device from a company called VAYR, VAYYAR, to track individuals in the car. Write down to who is it, in what seat. That's where we are going, people. Yep. And I see a lot of these startups which are trying to create experiences in the car for various different use cases. So yeah, everything is based on data in the car. So finally, my observation, and I'm a technology futurist, so it's not just an observation. It's grounded where I form my belief system. Is the real business models in the car is all going to be driven by data. It's going to help the customer offer some services, but it is all going to be who owns the data, how much of the data is being shared, is somebody disintermediating the data so that they're collecting two different groups, or disrupting a value chain where you had to go through a certain company, you had to go through the dealer and you get your service. And can that be disintermediated and you can straight away get service, roadside service in the car? Richard says topics for later to inspire and inform a follow-up show. Thank you. What is it? I like to know what people's biggest fears or concerns are. What impediments are there to large-scale adoption of AV vehicles? That's a good one. In fact, when I talk about business drivers in my AV class, the very first thing I talk about, and those of you who have signed up, if you've not, on Driverless World School, I have a free AV course, which is my Stanford course archive. I have my business driver. So consumer adoption is a big business driver. So it's not like, hey, it's all going to switch from ownership is going to switch. And Richard has had conversations with me where he would not let go of his car easily. So there's going to be either segmentation of users, or it is going to be some adoption change, or something, killer app that it makes Richard change. And Richard has more to say. Will the technology pull people in? I don't know. I came mentally prepared to say I don't know for something, but I was not thinking this question. So we don't know what would be the killer app, what would be the killer experience. My take is it is not just technology. If it is just technology, we would have had it by now. It is some kind of experience that wants us to adopt this whole autonomous vehicle, give data willingly, do things like that. Coming back, I'm reaching the end of the hour, so I need to wrap up. So we spoke about the different 3 digital twins. What are the different data in the car? We briefly touched upon in specific industries like healthcare and insurance. There's a lot more industries. Pretty much, I would say every possible industry. I would actually challenge you to give me an industry, and I can tell you that autonomous vehicles are going to be disrupt that industry. That is and what business model, who's going to pay for it, how that will happen, is going to be centered on data. So don't think of data as something that is hidden and inside. but think of everything the car is doing, everything you're doing, every behavior of you along with everybody else, how that comes into play. All the different players who are providing these services and technologies and parts in the car, what piece of data do they have? When they put that together, can a new business model evolve? Can new value be created? When I say business model, I believe some form of value has to be created for the customer for which somebody is going to pay. They're either going to, and David said this to me, David Kerrigan said this to me. I don't know if it's his original quote, but if you are not paying for the data, you're the product. And that's the truth in all this all connected world. So I'm going to wrap up. So I want to thank all of you for your questions and for coming here and keeping this engaged. I'm going to do this again next Wednesday, same time, 5 p.m. Europe time, and uh, 9 a.m. our time. And before I go, I promised, Patrick was here last week and he was saying he wants a 3-hour course from me. So what I'm doing is I put my free AV course from my Stanford collection, and go sign up or check the previews and download and take whatever you want. I put all my decks. I am going to launch a new set of course, which will be a paid course, but I'm going to give a free version of conversations here and slides here that I will put it up. So I want to give a free version to everybody, and then there will be a drill down engagement, work with me. Maybe you will get 30 minutes one-on-one time with me as part of the course if you sign up for a paid course. So I'm going to launch that. So what I'm going to do as a follow-up is, I believe for you to truly understand autonomous vehicle business broadly, you need to understand data in the car. This is the business of data that we are talking today. You need to understand business models. We touched upon business models that is relevant to data only in a very limited sense, but the whole business model in the car is a huge topic. The third is product management. How do you create that experience? How do you take the entire mobility stack from the phone and take it to the car? And how do you create experiences in a very collaborative environment of multiple stakeholders being involved? So product management is a very big piece. So I'm planning to do 3 courses: business of AV data, product management in the car, business models, autonomous vehicle business model, as 3 course. Maybe I'll make that like a bundle course and you can take one or all of them. And I'm going to launch that. So today, right now, it's not there, but in the next few hours, I will go put it up on, I'll give you a syllabus and a overview of what it is. I'm not going to open it for registration now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like, and I'm just going to give you a teaser on driverlessworldschool.com, and I'm going to put this version of our conversation as a edited slide version with all the references that I was talking about. I'll need a day or so for editing, so give me that time. I'll put that for free, and I will come back and talk to you about business model next Wednesday the same time. And if there is a interest to do as a follow-up on this, I will be happy to continue another Wednesday. I'm thinking this time works for multiple time zones, so give me feedback and I will make sure that I will continue to have this conversation for free, put this archive of it in an edited fashion on Driverless World School for those who don't want to do any paid course. But if you want to take it further and apply it to your industry or apply it to your career and go further with that into a certificate course of some form, that's the one I'm going to launch. So I'm planning by next Wednesday, when I have the next round conversation with you, I will be ready to open up the course for registration. But later today, if you go to driverlessworldschool.com, you can just get the free versions of what I'm offering, or you can actually check out what is it I'm talking about as paid courses. And give me feedback, because I want this to work for you. So thank you, everybody. I see a lot of thank yous, and thank you, because if you are not here, this won't be fun. I'll be just talking to my own computer. Thank you. And I'll connect with you. Yes. And I actually say that to all my students. And I love that my students who already took the semester long course or the workshop at Stanford came back. That's the fun part of what I do, is my students follow up, because you're going to shape the connected, autonomous, driverless world. And I want a small part mentoring you and making you think and ask the right questions and see what's out there. Thank you, everybody. With that, I'm going to wrap up. And I will see you next week, or I will see you online at driverlessworldschool.com. Thanks. Bye. Can end stream.